when I started to realize that our country and the way we run our country isn't working well for musicians. And since then, it's been a never-ending battle. COVID obviously took away a lot of their income. Brexit has made things worse. It's made it harder to tour. I obviously still do talk about climate change, the housing crisis in the UK. I talk about all these other issues as well. But for me, the music is the really specific local issue that's really relevant to Camden, the area that I'm running in. And so really people see it as a great extra thing to be talking about.
All right. The world may not need another podcast, but it can definitely use a
slap in its face.
Hey, welcome to Slap the Power. We're back for season 3, Maya. Hi.
And also, I don't know if you noticed, but we got that it's got that new studio smell.
That's right. It smells new in
They
here.
still got the plastic on the couches.
It still smells like money up in here.
That's right. In studio today with us, we are blessed with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Tyrone Taylor.
That's right. Give me a slap and I'll slap you back.
Hey, on the show today, we're coming together to actually interview Charlie Clinton. He's running for parliament in the UK. He's a musician. He's a big fan of really, really good music, and we're going to talk to him a little bit later. Yeah, we're going to talk to him a little bit later. We're going to talk a little bit about T Swift and a record that she just dropped that is nothing but diss on old boyfriends, and if that's an acceptable way to communicate. We're going to rap about Diddy real quick because I think it's pertinent. But before we start any of that, it's supposed to be like a bunch of, there's going to be a lot of,
Well, but okay.
That's her.
But also, isn't that every woman's album?
It
like
should
every
be.
woman's album is like, this man did me wrong.
This
other man did
is
me wrong.
awful. Yeah.
But also when she's singing Tortured, what I like about it is she's saying tortured poets, whatever, for her.
Yeah.
For someone like, all those feelings are justified for someone. I would hate it if she tried to do a tortured poetry album that sounded like a hip-hop person. Different stories that to them are tortured. Her version of tortured is her torture.
It's going to be Stop Being entitled, because I think it's going to be about whatever, the stack of ex-boyfriends. But
the only reason why
that's
we're
a great song
looking
title,
at
Stack of Ex-Boyfriends.
Facts.
Now that's a black album.
That's a very black album. It's a stack. I lined them up. But here's the thing. The thing that we take for granted is that she's been famous since she was 16 or something.
Yeah.
So the only issue is all her ex-boyfriends are famous because we know them.
Yeah, right.
If this had been any other woman who was talking about,
John Mayer or the dude from 1976.
Exactly. Like any of these people. But if it was any other woman who just put out a record about these were all my shitty ex-boyfriends, we wouldn't know exactly who they were talking about.
It kind of makes it more interesting for us to know who she's talking about in the song.
Yeah.
Opposed to just being someone talking about an ex-boyfriend, you're like, all right.
Right.
We can see that person.
Yeah.
We know their history. We know their sports record. We know their album titles.
Yeah.
And it's also looking at a person's crappy behavior in real time, right? So nobody wants to be but we've all done crappy things to a person at some point. Like, whether we cop to it or not, we have all made somebody feel alienated at some period of time.
Yeah.
So if somebody all of a sudden put a microscope to every time you were kind of a dick, do you know what I mean? Like
or made a song about it.
Hey, I'm not plugging an album today, but I tell you, if I was plugging one, my album is all about being a distraught about being the distraught girlfriend.
Listen.
If you heard my album and didn't hear me singing it, you'd be like, who the fuck is this bitch? Why is she so mad?
Who are you, Ty Taylor?
If you didn't have a lens on who I was and what it sounded like, you'd be like, shit, that girl been hurt.
Okay. It's definitely giving, always doing it, up to your ex-girlfriend.
It's giving Jewel, it's giving Alanis,
yes.
it's giving everybody.
It's giving disgruntled ex-girlfriend. And disgruntled ex-girlfriend is real.
Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah. It is a happy ending. I am rooting for the Travis. I actually like it.
I saw them at Coachella and they were adorable.
They're adorbs. I think it's cool. I'm rooting for it. I'm rooting for it. But all right. Well, after the break, when we come back, it's going to be our interview with Charlie Clinton. He's running for Parliament in the UK, and he's going to get a big face full of Vintage Trouble and Maya Sykes.
Yeah. Also, you got to think about it with this whole Taylor thing. Travis, that's a new level for her to tackle. I'll be here all week.
Gambling is part of the culture of America, since even before we were America. I'm Norman Chad. I know gambling. I've played blackjack and poker. I've bet sports and horse races. I've even hit the slot machines at a Pahrump, Nevada 7-Eleven. You say gambling, I say gambling mad. So join me on Gambling Mad with Norman Chad, wherever you find your podcasts. Follow us on socials at Gambling Mad Show or at Gambling Mad Norman Chad at YouTube.
All right, joining us in the studio today, he's running for UK Parliament. He is he's a fan of great music, and he is a friend of ours. His name is Charlie Clinton, and he represents an area in the UK that's near and dear to our heart. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Slap the Power, Charlie Clinton.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, first question that's the most important: who's your favorite band?
I think it might be a band called Vintage Trouble. I'm not entirely sure. There's a lot to choose from, but
shameless self-plug, and that's because we have in studio with us today for the interview as well, Mr. Ty Taylor.
Hello.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show is number one, you're doing good, my man, or you're picking up, right? You're picking up, and I love where you come from an artist first standpoint in your campaign, as far as trying to make everything easier for gig workers of all kinds. Tell us everything about your campaign and where you're coming from on it for the people that don't know.
Cool. So I think the first thing to say is, as you alluded to, I'm running in an area of London which is really the heart of music in London and the UK, which is Camden. My reason for running, I will confess, was not originally about music, actually. Climate change is the thing that got me really interested and decided I couldn't sit on the sidelines anymore. And then I'm sure you will have heard about this small thing we had called Brexit, which pushed me towards a particular political party, because obviously I fundamentally disagreed with it. But as I got involved in politics, I saw the opportunity to champion causes I care about as well. And the number one on my list was music. That's very personal to me. And I think the awakening I had was during COVID, the day that the lockdowns came in and all of the pubs were told to shut, all of the gigs that we had for the year just went overnight, right?
In one day.
And I was looking at that and thinking, well, I'm going to be okay because I have a full-time job as well and I could work from home through COVID. But a lot of the musicians I work with didn't have that luxury and were just immediately facing no income with no guarantees of any support. And a lot of them struggled to get support from the government because the government wasn't thinking about the people who were falling through the cracks, and musicians were right up there with people who fell through the cracks. And that was the starting point for me when I started to really realize that that our country and the way we run our country isn't working well for musicians. And since then, it's been a never-ending battle. COVID obviously took away a lot of their income. Brexit has made things worse. It's made it harder to tour. There was I think this is a very British thing, but basically during COVID, noise complaints increased dramatically across the country. And I think especially when venues started to reopen again,
that happened here as well.
Musicians are playing and people are working at home. Then there are musicians and venues who are suffering as a result of that change in behavior. And then you think about things like AI that are coming along and the explosion in generative AI over the last year in particular, which is fantastic and could be really, really valuable for creatives, but also poses yet another risk. And so it's just, as you're starting to look at these things, you see all these different problems and they're all coming to a point. And what I actually had a letter in our local press just this week, which kind of highlights this point, which is what happens in 10 or 20 years if we don't fix this now, if we don't start supporting the music industry? Because right now we have people, really successful musicians who've come through the grassroots, who came through the education system in the UK. But, what happens if we don't support that now and that all breaks down? We will not have the next Amy Winehouse or the next Ed Sheeran. And that would be a tragedy. So that's a kind of blurb about the musicians campaign in particular.
I love that. What is the situation like in the schooling right now with regards to music and where it's at?
Well, it's not good. Engagement with GCSE music and A-level music, which are kind of, I'm not sure if your listeners will be familiar with the British school system, but that's sort of the exams you do at 16 and 18. The participation in those has absolutely dropped over the last 10 years. And the other problem is that access to sustained music education is unequal. So the state school system basically has, I think it's something like 25%. I can't remember the numbers off my head, but it's very low levels of state schools that actually offer sustained music tuition. It's higher for independent schools. It's 50% for independent schools. That's still not very high. But that tells you both that there's not as many children as should be getting the opportunity to learn instruments, and that the ones who are generally the richer, more wealthy ones.
Well, it sounds like what happened in the United States, because they took out all of the music programs about 23 years ago at the state level, and then they would have privatized groups come in to some of those schools, but not all of those schools. So I'm wondering if you guys have the same system where some of the state schools are getting the benefit of privatized groups coming in and saying, we're here to teach you music, even though what should have been in place has now been removed. It seems like there's been a privatized government kickback to some of these privatized groups to get grants, or for in our case, like one of the ones that we have is called Music Cares, and they get grants and funding to go into schools that don't have any music programs and set them up, but they're not in every school. So you're still having the same quagmire of not having the same access of education. And we're the society that's you 20 years ago. So I can tell you what it looks like. We're now, we're now in a situation where a lot of people are learning at home through music programs like GarageBand, for example, but they don't really know how to do it. So there's still a limited access of just the basic knowledge of certain parts of music that you should know. So I'm wondering what do we think are the fundamentals? Because that's where I feel like we're breaking down, and that's where I feel like there's a huge gap in the people who just get basics, like just basic piano and basic music theory and basic things like this. So are you having that same fallout now?
Yeah, I think that there's a system in the UK called the Arts Hubs, which are kind of regional hubs, which are supposed to provide that music education for schools.
Right.
But basically, their funding's been frozen, which means in real terms, they've had a massive cut over the last 10 years or so.
Is that Brexit?
It's very similar.
That freeze, is that Brexit, or is that because of the pandemic?
No, it predates both.
I think it was a conservative backlash.
I mean, without getting political, I am political. The Conservative government has chronically underinvested in arts. And I think there is another linked problem, which is that local council, so local government in the UK is able, because they actually look after the local education in their area. So they are able to put money into the arts, into music education, but they're struggling. I mean, financially, they are really struggling to maintain even their levels of investment. And I think, and then there's just an element of, a lack of interest, which sounds ridiculous, but in Camden, which is, in Camden, which as you alluded to, is an area that is proud of its music heritage. We submitted a budget amendment in March. I say not me personally, but the local councillors that the Lib Dems have in Camden, as part of our efforts to drive the music agenda forward. We submitted a budget amendment that found new money in the Camden area that the local government weren't using, effectively sell a building and rent floors on a building that weren't being used, and then use some of that money, not a lot of it, a couple of $100,000, to launch a pilot scheme offering free musical instruments to all the children at certain schools. And we've seen that pilot scheme run well in other councils and boroughs. It's worked really well, but the Camden Labour government just voted it down for no apparent reason. They weren't going to have to compromise on any of their policies. And it's just kind of shocking. And I feel like a lot of the problem is that politics in this country has become so divided and so polarized that instead of looking at that as a really good, just practical suggestion, they just voted it down because it wasn't their idea. And so there's a whole mix of things that are causing problems. And I will just say, in defense of everyone and probably in the whole world. Yes, COVID's made it worse. Yes, obviously inflation, increased costs has made it worse. And we're seeing that now with more and more local councils cutting arts funding for orchestras and so on. But it is, there's still more that could be being done that's not. And that's not good enough, which is what the campaign's hoping to highlight.
I'm sure I will have not been the first person to say this, but what I don't hear a lot of people talking when they come to this subject is it's not only about music. A lot of times there are elements that will be released through being educated through an art that will allow a person to, first of all, be heard, be understood. It will allow a person to maybe not get into certain situations that could be criminal, could be other things that they get to release through the arts. So when you're taking it, this is not just a subject about music. It's about also what music education can do to someone's life in their future. And so I think a lot of times a conservative versus liberal, people are thinking, why instruments? It's not only about the instruments. It's about what that focus, what that spark will do to someone that might otherwise not have a chance to have it released, not to mention the mathematics involved in music and all these other things that are the benefits.
But that's been proven. I mean, there's been enough research that shows that music education improves cognitive reasoning skills, motor function, brain functionality. But I think that part of the disconnect is that over the last 25 years, people have started to see musicians as a disposable hobby rather than a career. So people have seen musicianship as a disposable hobby, because look at all the millionaires who worked in a different field and then decided that they wanted to take up guitar, and now they're hiring some of the best musicians around, right? And they have all the gear and the da-da-da, but they didn't have to do any of the wherewithal, the work, and the toil to get there, so they don't appreciate the chain of events that happens in the lives of most musicians. And post-COVID, the thing that I've seen, I don't know if this is true in the UK, but post-COVID, a lot of these venues are underpaying musicians because they have this rationale of, you should just be happy to be here. You should just be, this is your talent, and you should just be happy to do it anywhere. And it took the impetus of what it meant to earn a living. And it's now not seen as a factor. It's seen as a hobby. It's seen as the same way that we play PlayStation or do other gaming events. It hasn't been seen as a livelihood, as a career. So I think part of the disconnect and part of the way you fight back is show how this is a livelihood. I've talked in schools as a working singer, and most people think that if you're not Beyonce, you're waiting tables and you're singing at the same time. So nobody understands that there is a whole career that you can make from just being a musician, because that's slowly being eradicated. And I think that if we're going to fight the mindset of this conservative policy, the first thing that we have to do is interrupt the consciousness of this no longer being a viable career.
No, I'd say, Ty, you're all completely right. I mean, that program that I mentioned, the pilot scheme, it was called Every Child a Musician, and it proved exactly what you were saying, even on a small scale. And there's been other research released recently in the UK which showed the same thing. And that was all in the kind of the spiel about the budget amendment that we were submitting. So it's absolutely true.
One thing we learned as musicians, and it took us a while to get there during the pandemic, is that we did find ourselves being essential workers.
Yes.
When we would hear from the amount of fans and just see the way the cities that had the music taken away from them, the anger that would rise in the city, you started to understand, just like a person that was a cashier or a bus driver, musicians and musicianship and songs and music and melody and words and rhyme, it's important to a person's well-being. This is why a lot of people don't understand why so many people, I don't even get it as a fan. Yeah. Why people are so addicted to going to live music.
It does something different.
It does something different. Yeah. And it really releases them in a way that obviously a television show won't do, or something that's only 2-dimensional. It's actually 5-dimensional, 6-dimensional is going to a live show. And community is another thing.
And the other thing that people didn't realize, in my opinion, was not only were musicians essential workers, we were essential workers that were called upon during the pandemic. But to do that essential work, we had to invest $2,000 to $5,000 to make our homes ready to record, ready. I mean, I worked the entire time during the pandemic. I didn't get any of them. More. I didn't get any of those grants, and I was just shelling out my life savings to make myself viable. And I was lucky that at least I had people that would help me, people that helped me find the right equipment, set it up. I had no idea what I was doing. So all of a sudden, I went from being a really great singer, if I don't say so myself, to having to also be a studio engineer, a lighting designer, a technical director.
Without your early education, you might not have been able to do some of that.
I couldn't have even fathomed it.
But then what about this part? Because we're talking about the importance of it in our society. Let's go back to USO.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to send musicians in to make sure that our soldiers are okay to fight a war, music is important.
It's essential. It is an essential.
The only thing is, don't send Kid Rock, though. That's the problem. Is we keep sending Kid Rock. We fuck it up.
Well, I was just going to weigh in and say, again, I agree with you guys. It's a point that I made when we passed the motion at the London Regional Conference. Effectively, the opening of that speech was effectively the same thing you said, which is music surrounds us every day. We use it to celebrate all the highs and lows in life, weddings, funerals. We use it to pump us up in the gym, or if we need to calm down and relax. It surrounds us all the time. And then to kind of say, well, hang on a minute, the people producing all this music, that's not a viable career, that's just a hobby, when we literally all indulge in it day in, day out, is astonishing to me. And just I think you made a point, Maya.
Yeah.
Pardon?
No, but look at all the conservatives that use music to launch their campaigns and then get sent these cease and desist letters because these people are like, hang on a minute, you've cut all the funding and you said that I don't matter, but you still want to use my music to come out to? Pick a struggle.
No, it's not good enough. And it's not just them. It's you know, as you said, some of the pubs that we play in, there's a couple of different pub chains in particular that we work with, and one of them we've managed to push the fees up, you know, year on year. One of them we haven't. We're still paying the same amount, being paid the same amount as we were before COVID.
That's here. And people got mad at me because there were certain places that wanted me to play for $200 for 5 hours. And I was like, let me tell you something. My father got paid $200 in 1974 to play for 5 hours. So if you ain't come up with inflation in over 45 years, we have a problem, Kimosabi. Like, come on, what's good? No, this is not going to work.
I'm curious, what did other people that are running with you, against you, for you, about you, what did they have to say when you went from climate control to then preaching about music and art? Like, what was that transition like from them looking at it toward you?
To be honest, it's an interesting one because I obviously still do talk about climate change. I talk about the housing crisis in the UK. I talk about all these other issues as well. But for me, the music is the really specific local issue that's really relevant to Camden, the area that I'm running in. And so really people see it as a great extra thing to be talking about. And I'm probably a disproportionate amount of my time is going on that because it's close to my heart, because it's locally relevant. But I'm planning on using...
Is it music or entertainment?
It's music specifically, but honestly, as I think one of you alluded to earlier, it's the gig economy generally, it's creatives generally. So in a way, by focusing in on musicians, you make it more real to people. But I think there's a spillover effect in terms of awareness and understanding of what other people are struggling with as well. And I, like one of our MPs who's currently in Parliament, was already looking at the AI regulation issue because of sort of photography and how that was, the challenges there. So there's a lot of overlap. But I'm focusing on musicians because that's where I'm the most credible to talk about. I know the people, the stories, the background in more detail. We have,
as you know, we have such a connection to Camden too because so many reasons, but the stables, the roundhouse, the night Amy Winehouse passed away, we were we were in Camden, and
wow.
and then we had to go. We had to play Secret Garden that night, and
oh wow,
it was pretty emotional and everything. But the thing I love about it is that is at the center of your passion, and you're letting that kind of lead.
Saints.
All Saints. So that's right. We had All Saints in Camden. But one of the reasons we made the show is trying to make some of these. We're all walking into so many new things that is kind of in front of, I think, humanity. Right. In a lot of ways, there's so many things that are just new to us. We have a president on trial right now, sitting, an ex-president with 91 felony counts. We're going to have to deal with that. AI, just in the way of the internet. And there's so many things that are kind of, we need each other to get through it, and we're going to need a village. And what I love about this show is kind of trying to bring in some of these important issues to people that just, maybe if it doesn't have to be politics, it doesn't have to be anything. It's us trying to figure a way through together in life.
But it's really great though, this combination of thought with politics and music. I'm anxious to find out from you, because musicians, we can talk a lot and then sometimes be a little lazy. So I'm curious, how have the musicians been showing up for you to help your campaign?
Well, so it's been not like hugely yet, because to be clear on the timing, the actual general election campaign hasn't started officially. We don't exactly know when that will be. But so far, I think the musicians that I know in particular, like my group, have been really supportive. And, they volunteered. Although, I said to them, look, do you want to come and play at my launch event? My sort of campaign launch event is a PR stunt, really. And they, one of them did it for free. A couple of them volunteered to do it for less. I offered to pay them, but because they care about the issue, and obviously they know me, they did it for vastly discounted rates. And I think they found it really engaging and really enjoyable, and rewarding. And one of them is actually, is obviously volunteering his time on top of that to help me with the sort of the mixing and the recording work that we're trying to do. And I think that's where you guys very generously said I could potentially cover your song. And there's a conversation there to pick up, but it's, so they're volunteering their time to help me. And I'm sure as we start putting the word out more and more widely through podcasts like this, the press that I did this week and last week in an industry mag, I'm sure that there will be more who will rally around and help. In all sorts of different ways. And that's the hope, obviously.
It feels like a dream for most musicians. And I think big optics, I can just see you in Camden. I can see you on some bridge. I can see thousands of musicians around you getting that kind of attention toward you. And then it's a no-brainer. Yeah. I mean, if everyone knows, I can't imagine one musician, and it's just me calling them out, I can't imagine one musician that wouldn't be there for you. Yeah.
I mean, that's the hope. And also, you sound a lot like one of our campaign managers who, when I first said I was running for Parliament, he was like, we need to get you on a roof with your trumpet. But
like literally.
I'm saying 1,000 trumpets. I'm saying 1,000 trumpets.
Yeah, I'm saying 1,000 trumpets too with you at the helm. I need trombone thugs in harmony. Yeah, right. I need the whole situation.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to take advantage of trumpet-related humor. We did manage to, one of the bits we got in the press a couple of weeks ago was off the back of the launch event, which I promoted by telling people it might be the first time in history a parliamentary candidate has literally blown their own trumpet at a launch event. And that line made it into the press with a picture of me playing the trumpet. So,
See?
But yeah, there's definitely room to do what you're talking about. And I think it's just a question of trying to build that grassroots support and then seeing what we can do and how we can do it. Because I'm keen to do something, some sort of stunt along the lines of what you're talking about.
Let me ask you,
rally the troops.
Before we let you go, let me ask you this: what organization do you work with on the climate change side? Are you already aligned with a group on the ground, or what are you doing to sort of combine that with a broader campaign?
I was working in a sustainability-focused role, and that was because I cared about climate change. So within the company that I used to work for, I moved teams into an experimental team, a project set up by the old CEO. Unfortunately, there were significant structural changes in the company, and the team ended up getting cut. So now I have more time to spend on politics, but I do need to find a job. But no, I mean, honestly, when it comes to climate, I think we all need to work together, and I'll work with any organization or group or campaigning organization that wants to wants to work with us. And there's one in particular that's already reaching out to candidates in the UK. It's 0 Hour. And they're basically looking for candidates to endorse a piece of legislation that certain MPs are trying to get the government to look at. And I was one of the first. I endorsed it basically straight away. I mean, it's a credible piece of legislation, and it will help force some accountability on our government going forward, whoever that is, which we desperately need. That's exactly the plan, is basically to make a nuisance of myself and make Keir Starmer pay attention to these issues.
Yeah.
And I'm privileged to be running against the man who may well be our prime minister in a few months.
Yeah.
Because if I can make him pay attention to these issues and make his voters care about them, then actually that may well have a bigger knock-on effect
I'm
than
telling
if I was
you.
running against any other MP.
Homelessness was not on the consciousness of any mayor or candidate until Karen Bass was like, no, this is an issue.
Yep.
And then her biggest opponent was like, oh, no, I have a plan for the homeless. And she was like, for real? Because you kind of helping with the homelessness. So
your plan is to multiply it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? One of the ways we make a difference is by coming out with good ideas, shouting about them, and letting other people steal them. And that's okay. Because we still get the same results.
Because we need to get it done.
Yeah. This is not a party political issue.
Right.
This is about raising awareness.
This is a human issue.
If it means the Tories or Labour run with it,
this is a human issue.
Not to mention, I can't wait to see your Hulu special about how you won and
all
you thought
day.
it was never going to happen.
Yes.
And is there anything else you want to say before we let you go?
No, just thank you very much. I appreciate the support you guys are showing, and I think I'll try not to. I'll try to make as much noise as possible. Let's put it that way.
Let us know about it.
Joyful noise.
Joyful
Preferably
noise.
in tune.
We'll try and help with the festival if any way we can too. Let us know.
Absolutely.
We know people so.
Hi, I'm Anjali Bhimani.
And I'm Julia Bianco.
And we are so excited to be bringing you our new creative baby, the Character Select podcast.
I've wanted to save the world since I was 4.
There has been no character like him up to that point, and there really hasn't been a character since.
Every episode of Character Select, we're going to be taking fantastic video game performances and talking about what makes them tick, what makes them exciting as players, as performers, as sound designers, as casting directors.
I feel like I've been ambushed. I was here to be on a podcast to talk about a video game.
So it's a big old love fest here. That's how we start this, and you're just going to have to deal with it. Recognized by the 2013 edition of the Guinness World Book of Records Gamers Edition as the most prolific female video game voice actor in the world.
You know it's a special project when you hold on to the people you created it with.
Careers are born by being in the right place at the right time, where you can't control the right time, but you can control the right place.
All right, we're back. That was really, really great having a politician that was so frank about how important music is.
Frank, I thought his name was...
his name's Charlie. No, but
He'll be here all week.
Yeah, that's right. He's still here.
Second show's different than the first.
That's right. Well, we're going to be checking in with Charlie through the campaign and stuff, but figuring out ways that we can kind of help. But
he was lovely.
He's lovely. He's super
Frankly,
awesome.
I liked him.
Yes.
Frankly's.
And shout out to Camden. Before we let you go, I need the roundtable. We were talking about this yesterday. I don't have a read on, and I know you're saying let's talk like on good things, but on the Diddy
I
thing.
wasn't saying that.
No, but on the Diddy thing, it's interesting to me. You going to take his kids out of the house like they took his kids out of the house. I'm one of the guys that I'm wondering, is this going to wind up being a nothing burger? Is this like do you think it's a lot?
I don't think that many people show up to your location.
Yeah, right.
With helicopters.
With helicopters.
And,
be pulling people's out with the zip ties and shit.
No.
Oh, they took his actual kids out of the house. I thought it was a racial slur about shit.
No, man. You see the fucking...
You're so stupid.
No, but the helicopters were over.
He's so tickled.
Yeah, Diddy took the kids out the house. I thought it was a joke.
Wait, the funny part was everybody going on. Okay, there's this comedian I follow named Josh Johnson, and he had a routine about him that was hilarious because he said, okay, everybody was saying why maybe he flew to Miami so that he could get to a country where he could, not be extradited or whatever.
Because he was in the Bahamas at the time is what I heard.
No, he was not. His plane was, but he was in Miami the whole time.
Okay.
Like they literally could have rolled up to Miami and been like, come with us,
Was
sir.
he up in Miami for hotel room shit?
For hostel room shit. No, I think he was like trying to holler at Young Miami, and she was like, "Nah, the block is too hot." I don't know.
We dropping them all week.
All week. But what is hilarious, Josh Johnson.
But also, Miami is his vice.
Hey! The thing, too, is that, okay, everybody was thinking he was this, like, gonna flee and da-da-da-da-da-da. Who knew that this mediocre rapper was a criminal mastermind?
Yeah, right.
Mediocre rapper.
Well, that's a fair statement. In the rap game, it's mediocre.
Right, but we just talked about how
it's giving mediocre. It's giving mediocre flow.
Yeah.
It's giving mediocre flow. I'm sorry, like I'm not trying to. And what's hilarious is I know the other producer that's
I'm still
suing
trying to
him.
get hired by people, so I'm gonna just keep it down.
I mean, listen, he is a producing genius, but
go ahead, I'll clean it up.
The flow's mediocre. No, I stand
producing cheat.
The funny thing is,
10 toes down.
The funny thing
the
is,
flow is.
He would even probably, if you got in his therapy session, probably say, "Yeah, I'm not one of the best."
Yeah, but what about that thing? What about the thing though? Did you think that he was trying to feel up Mike Tyson's butt in that video?
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, see, we were having.
But it's okay. But
no,
how do you
someone
say
said he
like
was just showing him his watch?
Okay.
No, he was showing him watch. All week.
Well, he
was ordering.
He was watching.
But
okay, I know the producer that brought the latest lawsuit.
Yeah.
And I'm just surprised. I'm scared for that boy's life.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
It's either going to one of two ways. No. It's going really, really bad.
The guy should be smarter. The guy can't say, like, after the 5th time.
Yeah.
Because what happened the first one time? And then you can't say once it was bad, and then I went on a yacht with him and radio.
I know for a fact that he's done some nefarious things.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering how long it is until the nefarious things that he's done come to light, because half of them are of public record at this juncture.
And this may not be this might get me in trouble. I still, but I don't want to do it. But I have issue with, so like, the scene, we were talking about this yesterday. Even the scene in Straight Outta Compton, right? At that point in time, that party out by the pool and stuff like that, right? It's a dramatization and everything like that. But that's kind of the way the real life was, and people were sneaking in. You were 16-year-old girls trying to different time. I'm not trying to excuse anything.
AJ, nothing but a number.
No. But I can. That's one thing. If you're actively trafficking in human beings and making money off of it, right? I'm not allegedly. That's what I'm saying. I think it could be a big nothing burger. And what I'm concerned about is we live in this time of misinformation, disinformation. All this stuff starts going on. And you're like,
there's something about trafficking with him now.
Yeah,
oh yeah, that's a huge thing.
That's the thing.
They're trying to get him on a RICO, honey.
Yeah, it's.
Oh wait, wait a minute.
They don't come to your house and pull your kids out.
So now it's old news about him with the guy who was working for him. That's old news.
That's just one of like a
handful of things. But what they trying to get him on is sex trafficking and distribution of illicit materials of underage minors.
You're not allowed to have sex in traffic now?
when did that rule come about?
It's frowned upon.
We can't have sex in traffic anymore. Shit. This is new. This is new news. We're breaking new news here on Slap the Power.
We're trying to keep you informed.
That's right. Keep you informed. So you cannot have sex in traffic anymore.
Bye.
Because now I have nothing to do.
Yeah. Well, Ty Taylor, thank you for coming down and rolling in as a guest host today. We super appreciate it. It's always great to see your face. And Maya, I'm looking forward to hearing more about your second weekend of Coachella and everything you got going up. Congratulations on all that stuff that's going on. And we appreciate you checking in. We're going to see you guys next week.
Slap the power, y'all.
Yeah, slap the power.
Slap the Power is written and produced by Rick Barrio-Dill and Maya Sykes. Associate producer, Bree Corey. Audio and visual engineering and studio facilities provided by Slap Studios LA, with distribution through our collective home for social progress in art, Slap the Network. If you have any ideas for a show you want to hear or see, or if you would like to be a guest artist on our show, please email us at info@slapthepower.com.
Ever wonder what a high-stakes private home game looks like? This is it. Real poker, real money, real people. It's the boardroom in Beverly Hills. They win, they lose, they even go broke, and they come back. Join Amir and Jacob as they welcome a cast of dignitaries and degens to the boardroom.
Amir's my best friend. We battle to the death.
With all due respect, our game is much different than your game.
This ain't a pansy-ass Hollywood home game. These are the rough and tumble streets of Beverly Hills.
Did you rank the players here?
I don't think it's a good idea.
They play big, they play hard. Watch as they make their way to the World Series of Poker. Each will try to turn $10K into $500,000 at the Big O event June 13th.
In my opinion, some of the guys that play here, they should make the final table.
For many, that $10K might go down the drain in just one hand. Follow it all on socials at Gambling Mad Show or Gambling Mad Norman Chad on YouTube.